show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business.
What if everything you thought you knew about Stephen A. Smith was a lie? The man who built his career preaching honesty and respect might be hiding a story no one was ever supposed to hear. Because this time, it isn't about sports, contracts, or debates. It's about betrayal, ego, and a respect so fake it could win an award for performance. For months, Stephen A. has acted like the model professional, praising Molly Qerim, smiling on air, telling everyone he wishes her the best. But behind the polished image and calm interviews, there's a storm. Insiders from ESPN whisper that his respect for Molly was nothing more than a calculated move to protect his own brand while quietly pushing her out of the spotlight. And now, Molly Qerim is done staying quiet. After months of silence, she's speaking out, and what she's revealing could shatter Stephen's carefully built reputation forever. By the end of this story, you'll be wondering the same thing everyone else is asking. Was Stephen A. ever sincere, or has his entire act been nothing but a show?
First Take. Normally, our friend Molly Qerim would greet you. However, Molly announced last night she will be departing from ESPN. She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade.
For years, Stephen A. Smith has been the loudest voice at ESPN, the man who never hesitates to call others out, to speak the truth, and to remind everyone that he keeps it real. But now, for the first time, that loud, confident voice is being turned back on him. Because what started as a professional breakup between two television personalities has turned into something far more personal, and far uglier. The story begins right after Molly Qerim's quiet departure from ESPN's First Take. At first, fans assumed it was a simple career move. Maybe she wanted new opportunities, maybe she was tired of the show's format. But then came the whispers, the sudden tension on air, the awkward glances between Stephen and Molly during those final weeks. It was almost as if they both knew something that the cameras didn't. When ESPN released its official statement, it was short and clean. Molly Qerim has decided to pursue new projects. We thank her for her contributions. But behind that neat line was a storm of internal politics, ego clashes, and a relationship between two colleagues that had gone from friendly to fractured. Multiple sources inside ESPN claimed that Stephen's respectful behavior on air was just a mask. Off camera, the dynamic was different. Stephen was reportedly frustrated that Molly had become too vocal, that she was getting attention in interviews, that she had her own following independent of him. According to one producer who spoke under condition of anonymity, Stephen's ego couldn't handle sharing the spotlight. Molly had opinions, she had personality, and that didn't sit well with him. On air, he smiled. Off air, it was a power game. And when the rumors started that ESPN executives were considering giving Molly her own segment, everything changed. The tension reportedly escalated behind the scenes. Meetings became confrontations. Notes that were once collaborative turned into arguments about who got more screen time and control of the narrative. But here's the twist. When the situation started getting noticed publicly, Stephen didn't fight back. He did something smarter. He switched to his fake respect mode. Suddenly, the same man who was allegedly complaining about Molly's attitude was now complimenting her professionalism on camera, calling her family, saying he respected her decision. That's when fans noticed the shift. Too smooth, too sudden, too strategic. The man who never admits fault was suddenly full of kind words and polished goodbyes. It looked perfect on TV, but people who knew them both said otherwise. Molly, on the other hand, played it calm, professional, quiet, graceful. She didn't respond to any of the speculation, didn't post cryptic messages, didn't start a war. But her silence only made things louder. Because in today's media world, when someone like Molly Qerim doesn't speak, the world starts to wonder what she's not saying. Weeks turned into months, and Stephen A. continued to position himself as the bigger person. He gave interviews saying there was no bad blood, that he wished Molly well, that he hoped she found success. But behind those statements, ESPN insiders described a very different energy. According to one unnamed assistant, Stephen wanted control of the narrative. He didn't want anyone thinking he had anything to do with Molly's exit. So he started acting extra nice on camera, even though off camera, he wasn't thrilled she left. This double-faced image, polite on stage, bitter behind the scenes, became the foundation of what many now call the fake respect era. And the strangest part? ESPN executives allegedly went along with it. After all, Stephen A. isn't just an employee, he's a brand, a one-man empire for ratings. Keeping him happy meant keeping the network's numbers up. So when whispers about his behind-the-scenes attitude surfaced, ESPN reportedly did what it always does: damage control. They pushed light-hearted clips, positive headlines, and exaggerated chemistry between Stephen and new co-hosts to make the public forget what really happened. But Molly didn't forget, and according to people close to her, she was quietly keeping receipts. Every dismissive comment, every ignored concern, every manipulative meeting where her voice was minimized. And now, after months of silence, she's ready to speak. In her recent appearance on a podcast, she didn't name Stephen directly, but the timing, the tone, and the thinly veiled references said it all. She talked about fake support, hidden agendas, and people who only pretend to respect you when the cameras are rolling. The internet connected the dots instantly, and from that moment on, the story was no longer about a co-host leaving ESPN, it was about what really drove her out.
There's a line. She did it with dignity and class and kindness, to say the least. We'll miss her and wish her every blessing on her future. I personally am grateful to her for her friendship, and I will miss spending every weekday morning with her right by my side.
The online storm didn't die down, it evolved. What started as a few whispers of fake respect turned into a full-blown media firestorm. Every podcast, gossip site, and sports blog wanted a piece of the drama. The Stephen A. versus Molly Qerim saga wasn't just a workplace dispute anymore. It had become a national conversation about power, ego, and hypocrisy in sports media. ESPN tried to steer the ship, but it was too late. The narrative had escaped their control. Reporters began showing up outside the network's headquarters. Questions about toxic culture and gender bias started surfacing. Suddenly, every clip of Stephen A. interrupting a female guest was being re-uploaded and dissected as evidence. Then came the breaking point, a leaked email allegedly from an ESPN executive. The message, addressed to the PR department, read, "We cannot let this story define our network. Emphasize unity, emphasize respect, protect our top talent." Those three words, protect our top talent, hit like a bomb. The internet took it as proof that ESPN was shielding Stephen A. while quietly silencing Molly. Stephen A. tried to get ahead of it. He posted a polished video statement saying, "I've got nothing but love for Molly. People can twist whatever they want, but I stand by what I said. She's family." But the delivery was too perfect, too rehearsed, too safe. The comment sections didn't hold back. He's reading off a script. Why does he sound like a politician? If she's family, why is she gone? Meanwhile, Molly made her most subtle yet powerful move. During a live appearance on a friend's podcast, she didn't mention Stephen by name, but when asked about people pretending to support women, she smiled slightly and said, "Let's just say, some people are better actors than analysts." That one sentence was all it took. Clips of the line spread across the internet like wildfire. Fans were convinced she was talking about Stephen. The phrase, "better actors than analysts," became a meme, trending on Twitter and printed on t-shirts within a week. Behind the scenes, ESPN was in chaos. Anonymous insiders claimed that executives were holding late-night meetings to decide how to handle the fallout. The company's biggest fear wasn't the scandal itself, it was losing Stephen A., the face of their highest-rated show. According to one alleged insider, Stephen's threatening to walk. He feels betrayed. He says if the network doesn't defend him, he'll take his audience elsewhere. But there was another twist. Sources close to Molly claimed that she'd been approached by rival networks, and that some had already pitched her ideas for her own talk show. Whether true or not, the rumor itself made ESPN panic. Suddenly, the woman they'd underestimated was becoming more powerful outside the network than she ever was within it. And the public wasn't done with Stephen A. yet. Fans began digging through old interviews, searching for contradictions, arrogant comments, or moments that could be reframed as evidence of manipulation. Every clip became ammunition. YouTubers released analysis videos with titles like Stephen A.'s Fake Persona, The Hidden Truth, and Molly Qerim's Revenge, What ESPN Didn't Want You to See. Even sports podcasts that never talked gossip before were dedicating entire episodes to the drama. And while the internet roasted him daily, Stephen tried to keep his composure on camera. He laughed louder. He smiled more. but his co-hosts couldn't ignore the tension. Fans noticed he interrupted less, avoided certain topics, and gave shorter monologues. The man who once owned the room suddenly looked cautious. Reports began suggesting that ESPN's higher-ups had quietly told him to keep things calm until the story blew over. But the problem was, it never did. The more he tried to ignore it, the louder it got. Meanwhile, Molly's silence was beginning to look like strategy. Every few weeks, she'd drop a vague statement or appear in a new interview, always calm, always composed. No drama, no direct attacks, just enough to keep the fire burning. And then came the final blow, a supposed tell-all interview teaser. A streaming network released a short promo featuring Molly's voice saying, "It's time to tell my side of the story." No visuals, no confirmation, just a black screen and her words. The internet lost its mind. Speculation exploded. Was she about to expose Stephen A? Did she have proof? Did ESPN know? Within 24 hours, the teaser had millions of views. Stephen's team scrambled to respond, but there was nothing to respond to. She hadn't actually said anything yet. The silence became the story again. And that's the beauty of this saga. No matter what Stephen said, Molly stayed one step ahead by saying less. In the world of television, silence can be the loudest statement of all. By the time the teaser dropped, sponsors reportedly began pressuring ESPN to issue a formal review of the allegations. The network released another polished statement saying it supports all its employees and condemns online speculation. But the public didn't buy it. People had already made up their minds. Stephen A. Smith, the loudest man in sports, had been accused of the one thing he could never afford, being fake. And Molly Qerim, she didn't need to prove anything. Her calm demeanor, her quiet confidence, and her perfectly timed responses had turned her into the hero of her own story. In the end, it wasn't a shouting match that exposed the truth, it was the silence that followed it. When Molly dropped those thinly veiled comments about fake support and hidden agendas, the internet exploded. Within hours, clips of her podcast were circulating everywhere. TikTok edits, reaction videos, Twitter threads dissecting every single sentence she said. Viewers weren't just listening, they were analyzing her tone, her pauses, her expressions. Every moment became evidence.
She abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
Fans started comparing her old First Take clips with Stephen A.'s on-screen behavior. Suddenly, moments that once looked harmless, a side eye here, a forced laugh there, were being reinterpreted as signs of long-simmering tension. Some fans even slowed down footage, claiming they could see the exact second when Molly realized she'd had enough. And then came the leaks. An anonymous account on X, formerly Twitter, claiming to be an ESPN insider, posted a thread saying that Molly's quiet departure wasn't voluntary at all, that she was pushed out, gently but strategically. According to the thread, ESPN wanted to protect Stephen's public image after an internal dispute turned ugly. One of the tweets read, "Molly Qerim didn't just leave. She was told to take time off after questioning Stephen's influence in production meetings. ESPN sided with its biggest asset. The rest is PR." The tweet went viral in minutes. Fans flooded the comments, tagging Stephen A. and demanding answers. At first, Stephen stayed silent, no tweets, no interviews, just that same smooth confidence on TV. But silence, in the age of the internet, is gasoline on a fire. Within 48 hours, new so-called sources started appearing. A YouTube commentator claimed to have leaked audio from an off-camera exchange between Stephen and Molly. The audio itself was never verified, but the captions told a dramatic story. Stephen allegedly dismissing Molly's suggestion about segment topics, saying, "You just handle the intros, I'll handle the takes." Was it real? Probably not. Did people believe it? Absolutely. Meanwhile, ESPN found itself in a PR nightmare. The network's executives reportedly called emergency meetings to manage the narrative. The fear wasn't just about bad press, it was about Stephen's reaction. Because Stephen A. is known for one thing more than his commentary, his pride. If he felt betrayed, he'd talk. And if he talked, the network couldn't control the story. But here's the twist. Instead of defending himself, Stephen went on his show and doubled down on his respectful persona. He He praised Molly again, called her an incredible professional, and said, "I'll always wish her nothing but the best." It sounded calm, measured, mature, and completely strategic. Because right after that statement, a leaked memo surfaced from within ESPN, suggesting that the network's PR team had approved that message word for word. The internet didn't buy the act anymore. Comments started pouring in. "This sounds rehearsed. He's definitely hiding something. He's doing damage control, not being honest." Molly, meanwhile, remained quiet. She didn't respond directly, didn't confirm or deny the rumors. But her silence kept the story alive. Every week she didn't speak made people hungrier for the truth. Then came the most shocking twist of all. A fake internal report started circulating online claiming to detail what really happened behind the scenes of First Take. The document claimed that several producers had raised concerns about Steven's treatment of co-hosts over the years, describing him as impossible to challenge and overly protective of his on-screen authority. The supposed report included fake quotes like, "He doesn't just lead the show, he controls it. Every angle, every reaction goes through him. And if you disagree, you're done." Of course, ESPN called the document completely fabricated, but by then, it didn't matter. The narrative had already taken root. Viewers weren't looking for facts anymore, they were looking for a villain. And in this story, Stephen A. Smith had become the perfect one. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Half the audience defended him, saying Molly was exaggerating. The other half accused ESPN of protecting its star while quietly silencing a woman who'd had enough. Memes, hashtags, reaction videos, the controversy became content. One YouTuber said, "This isn't about Stephen or Molly anymore. It's about power. The people who talk the loudest often hide the most." And that's when the real escalation began. A new leak, this time supposedly from someone inside ESPN's HR department, claimed that the company had conducted an internal review after Molly left. While no names were mentioned, the leak said certain behavioral patterns were inconsistent with professional standards. No one needed to guess who that meant. Within hours, the hashtag #FakeRespectGate started trending. It was everywhere, on sports blogs, gossip channels, even mainstream entertainment sites. Stephen A. Smith, the man known for telling it like it is, was suddenly being accused of living a double life, polished on screen, toxic behind it. And while he stayed composed publicly, sources close to him hinted that he wasn't handling it well. One associate allegedly told a reporter, "He's furious. He thinks Molly's timing was intentional, that she waited until it would hurt him the most." But Molly's team reportedly fired back quietly, saying, "She's not starting drama, she's ending it." The stage was set. Two media personalities, one network trying to protect its image, and a public that no longer cared about the truth, only about whose version of it sounded more believable. And that's where the tension peaked, right before everything exploded in the next chapter. So now the question is, what happens next? Does Stephen A. finally drop the act and admit what really went on behind the cameras? Or will Molly's next move completely destroy the image he's built for over 2 decades? Because one thing's for sure, the truth always finds its way out. And when it does, it never comes quietly. We've seen this story before: power, pride, and fake respect, all wrapped in one explosive scandal. But this time, the spotlight isn't on the show, it's on the people behind it. Molly Qerim has already shown she's not afraid to walk away from millions just to protect her peace. But if she really does speak out, we might witness the biggest takedown in ESPN history. So what do you think? Is Stephen A. the victim of cancel culture, or the mastermind of his own downfall? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you want the real truth, and don't forget to subscribe, because this story is just getting started. The next chapter might change everything.